Breaking news, Joshua Van versus Alexandre Pantoja in the rematch is rumored for UFC 331. I don't know if this is going to be the co-main event or the main event, but either way, this is a massive fight, a huge fight for the flyweight division. Joshua Van coming off a beatdown, an absolute masterclass win over Tatsuro Taira, and he's looking to defend his belt for the second time against the former champ, the former great, the legend of the flyweight division, Alexandre Pantoja. In my opinion, the greatest flyweight of all time. He's got more all-time elite wins than Demetrius Johnson. But that's a discussion for another day. Alexandre Pantoja, when he first fought Joshua Van, he was looking like the marauder of the 125 division. He was going through everyone. He was starting to lap the division. And then came Joshua Van, the fresh, hungry, young contender, 24, 25 years old, extremely young, the second youngest champion of all time. And a freak accident occurred. Listen, I'm a massive Joshua Van fan. He did not win that fight. He can say he pushed Pantoja all he wants, and he's got some good lines. He should drink more milk. He's got some cool lines. But the reality is that was a freak 1 in a million accident, and we didn't get to see a proper fight between the two of them. Now, did I think Alexandre Pantoja was going to beat Joshua Van the first time? Yes. Do I still hold that opinion? No. After seeing what Joshua Van has done, and as they say, when you become the champion, you can become 20% better, right? When you get that championship belt, when you get those championship rounds and that experience, like he has now with Taira. And in that fight, we saw Joshua Van get taken down, and what did he do? He popped right back up. Is Taira the level of grappler that Pantoja is? No. And prime for prime, Van versus Pantoja, I'm probably going to favor Pantoja just because he's got more ways to win the fight. But this is Pantoja coming off a devastating injury. He snapped his arm in half, right? It's not quite as bad as the leg going, but it's still a devastating injury, and that's not being spoken about enough. That was a bad injury that went out and occurred. The injury, the age, the weight cut only gets harder as you age. I think Pantoja is going to have a tough time going in there against Van, who's coming off a massive win, the biggest win of his career. Van is becoming a star. People are starting to get behind this guy. I see the hype. I see the edits. This guy is becoming a favorite. He's so, he's wholesome. He's young. He's promotable. He's walking out to Chief Keef. He's doing everything he needs to do to become a star in this game. He's one of those guys that really builds off of momentum. We saw that with his activity leading into the title fight with Brandon Royval, and then before that he had a fight, and then before that he had a fight. I think he had 3 fights in a calendar year leading up to winning the belt. And even when he won the belt, the way in which he carried himself and the way in which he celebrated, whilst it was kind of looked down upon by the fans, it just showed this immense confidence and this self-belief that this guy has in himself to just not care and not care about anyone else. So he's one of those guys that builds off of momentum, that gets better the more confident he becomes. And I think that is really going to help in this matchup. Stylistically, it's a tough matchup. Stylistically, it's a very tough matchup for Joshua Van. He's the striker. He's only been wrestling for 3-4 years. He's been boxing, street fighting. He only started training MMA like 5 or 6 years ago. Wrestling has not been his strength. But the takedown defense that he showed against Taira and the vast improvements that we're seeing in this guy's game, he's so young, he's so hungry, he's so keen to make his mark on the sport. I think he's going to get it done against Pantoja. It's sad to see because Pantoja is one of those guys that has a great story, and realistically, if it wasn't for that injury, who knows how that fight could have gone. I think Joshua Van, with less momentum, with less championship experience, loses to the younger, uninjured Pantoja that was in there against him in the first fight. But now that the injury has occurred, and now that Pantoja will be older, another weight cut, another training camp, there's all of these caveats. Van is just the guy with more momentum. And sometimes in MMA, despite styles, despite previous matchups, you have to just pick the guy who's more active, who's younger, who's faster, who's quicker, who's going to have the better chin in there. And I think that's Joshua Van, and I think he's going to beat him by decision. I think Pantoja is going to shoot a lot of takedowns. He's going to get him down. But I think Van's going to stand up, and I think Van's going to pepper him with the jab. Crisp boxing. I think we're going to see some leg kicks from Pantoja, but low at the calf so that he doesn't get taken down. It's going to be a war, but I think it's going to be a pretty clear majority decision for Joshua Van. And this is massive for Van. He's stepping back in there again. He just fought Tyra. Absolutely crazy activity from Joshua Van. He is becoming a superstar, and he is building himself up to be that superstar in the flyweight division. Much needed. I think if he gets past Pantoja, we might see a super fight between him and Manel Kape, who's blatantly on the sauce. Absolutely blatantly on the sauce. Him versus Manel Kape is a banger fight, and I would probably favor Kape because you need a power puncher to put away Van. If Van can stuff the takedowns and if Van is striking with you, it's game over because he's just going to out jab you. He's going to outpoint you. He's very fast. He's very quick. He's extremely talented at striking if he can stuff the takedowns and if it can stay on the feet. You need a power puncher. You know, he was put away by Charles Jordan. He's a smaller guy for the weight class. You need a power puncher like Manel Kape to put him away. So that's another interesting matchup, but we'll see if he gets through Pantoja first. Big news, UFC 331. After Islam Makhachev, we have Joshua Van versus Alexandre Pantoja. I think this can carry a pay-per-view, but it would be a nice co-main event to maybe a Merab, Peter Yan trilogy, or a Sean. I don't know if Sean O'Malley's going to be back in there, but if they're not going to do the Merab trilogy, Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan, they can run that. That's another banger fight. So we'll see what happens, but massive news, UFC 331. Like and subscribe. Thanks for checking out the video. Joshua Van is going to get it done. Light work.